April 12, 1997, or thereabouts, is one of the only easily retrieved backup copies done on archive.org. The majority of the content on the website originally went to a website called Clickable, and cr6.com stood for Clickable Reality, and I guess number 6 was revision or something. The domain name itself was done for what I'm going to call the light lifting version of the website. It contained mostly just what you see here, the web page content, mostly text, and then it linked directly to clickable.com, which was the main site for handling all the bandwidth. The website itself used either slideshow-style technology or animated GIFs or pictures that would include a separate page where you would have sound with it, that sort of thing, or included possibly video playback at one point or another. The website was the home of one of the first or the first online multimedia versions of a soap opera. Most of them up to that point were told in the form of diaries, but this one was more like a click your adventure kind of thing, a click and play kind of thing, a little bit like Myst in some ways, but nobody really knows. The website and the project eventually failed and was up for such a short period of time that only one or two of the captures actually worked. It should also be pointed out that the person who created the website, named Chris, on clickable.com had his own page on clickable.com/about, and it would be listed as Chris. The website itself was run by someone who prided himself on copy protection. That's a code word for making shit not retrievable on, well, archives, because archiving is theft. Also making it to where search engines had a hard time with it, I'm sure, at the time. Now, most of the captures after a certain point are people parking the domain name. And if someone was to use Whois or some other internet or IP address type tools, someone should be able to find out what server IP address was used at the time, and I can go from there. I'm going to be presenting you not with information on the lost media here. That's already taken care of by lost media websites and wikis. It's about a specific claim about the person who helped, or in fact created the website, who had a couple of characteristics. The individual who made this website, who ran clickable.com, etc., prided himself on making sure there was a spotless reputation for himself and making sure it stayed that way. Lashed out at people, sounds familiar to a lot of you, some of you met people in person like this, and made claims of making millions by the time he was 17 for copy protection software through very large companies, which it's maybe possible to confirm this. But there's a peculiarity. He stopped being alive at one point. He died. After he died, suspicious things happened, and in fact, the cause of death and the time of death are also considered suspicious. Now we're going to go look at the lost media page, but I want to point out something very important. I reversed imaged this right here. I just flipped it optically. The chat page on the website is the only thing you can click on anything on the first page besides, a couple of these things. It's the only part that's still hosted on the page, and you can get an archive of it. The rest of this all leads to clickable.com, and digging it out takes work. I should also point out that if you type in cr6.com:80 for port 80 or one of the other ports that a server might respond to, you may get or may not get different responses. But that's not relevant. I've come to a stymieing point. I need to know the IP address that was used at the time so we can see if, or when, archive.org backed up the data straight from the drives. And I need it also for clickable.com. And I want to point out that this person who ran the website may have been clever enough to make that hard to do, but not impossible by today's standards. Archive.org doesn't erase stuff unless you demand it by legal notice. Or bots. CR6 lost early internet show 1997. That's the guy. And he left a lot of people angry with him and chasing him, so he ran away to Santiago, Chile. He was a Canadian. Device could earn the student millions of dollars at 17, but his claim is he made millions. This is all very, very dubious. Most of these are self-aggrandizing assertions. He also left a lot of Google group conversations up to 2006. I'm not specifying what day. This is the Chris McKinstry Wikipedia page. a YouTube video uploaded a while back called into question how accurate it is about his death, January 23rd, 2006, age 38, Santiago, Chile. Now, there's a report you will see if you look it up, and it's also kind of quoted here, that was posted like an obituary, but it talked about police investigating his death and still investigating it, but deciding he had taken his own life. It should also be pointed out that there are no follow-ups anywhere. Also, it should be pointed out anyone attempting to claim there was a follow-up or that his body went from Chile back to Canada by his family picking it up, all lead to pages that either cannot be retrieved or at the time they were posted had a broken link. Like page 4 of a specific Chilean newspaper that posted itself on the net, which noted that it wasn't just that the image isn't accessible through archive.org, it was never there. At the time a person made a claim that they saw that in the newspaper, on that website, the newspaper page was missing because of an error on the server and was never fixed because no one really cared. Page 4. Another one was somebody merely claiming to have confirmed that his body was picked up, or claiming that he was in fact, the investigation had concluded and there was a follow-up. And then it linked to another Chilean source that said none of the subject. Just said no such thing. So there is no confirmation this man died after the initial reports. So I decided to trace down the reports. The reports don't come from newspaper articles in the area. They come from people quoting the web domain postings about it. So that's a red flag. So let's look at a few things. Number one, you can go to the talk page and then hit its history and see people arguing about this. But the YouTube video complaining about this or discussing this talked about just going to view history and seeing these edits. Now I want to point out that, again, I want to point out very clearly, January 23rd of 2006 at 38 is when he died in Santiago, Chile. That's the assertion. Remember that time and date stamp. So wherever we have IP addresses, I didn't just look up the IP address that was mentioned by the YouTube channel that mentioned that this looks like suspicious editing, self-serving to Chris after he's supposed to be dead. I went back to the day before he died. Many days before he died. But anyway, I looked up the word body because that's the fastest way to find this. Someone saying it's malicious, saying his family didn't pick up his body because it made them look callous. And his family did recover his remains, says the same channel. And a slash.org search to look for MindPixel, and somebody saying mentioning Iraq is unrelated or useless in point of view. Now I want you to look at Cogollofino here, June 5th, 2006, and let's see if we can see any more redliners. These are red outs or red linked, meaning these are contributors that have been erased since they started editing. Now we're just looking at the edits on him. 24th of January, around the time he died? Again, he died 23rd. Okay, there he is, Cogollofino. Let's keep going back a little further. There's some IP addresses here, November, etc. So let's go forward again. Let's go back to the time and look at the IP addresses. Cogollofino and several different IP addresses. So let's look at all of them. Let's look at Cogollofino, who's been redlined, so I shouldn't be able to see this page. Yes, when Wikipedia erases stuff, they don't really erase it either. So yeah, there it is right there. All he did was edit Chris McKinstry. Even if his edits were removed and he was blanked, this page will show this. This is everything he asserted about it. From January 24th, he died on 23rd. Okay, he was really aware of them. Let's go forward to this one. Contributor Grub, 25th of January and to the 31st. Arguing back and forth about whether or not the death was confirmed, and then one other subject prominently displayed. Something called Voyage au Pays des Nouveaux Gourous. Now, I want you to notice that you're going to have to pay attention to that, because that's all this person ever did, almost exclusively, for the rest of 2006, and then later on started up again on Wikipedia years and years later. The other thing was just Chris McKinstry. Literally. No obituary for him. No news. Where's the body? So this is a person saying, I don't think he's dead. And this is a person defending the family. And this person only covers one other subject. Voyage, yada, yada, yada. Okay, now let's go forward. That article is here, and it's French. Investigative journalism. France. Did you know that half of Canada, where Chris McKinstry comes from, is French-Canadian? Let's go forward. Here's another user contribution by an IP address. These IP addresses can still be traced to where they appear to come from now. You can also look up where these IP addresses may have been reassigned to in the past for whatever other place on earth they were. Just saying. Here's another one, almost exclusively about Chris McKinstry. And started editing Chris McKinstry January 21st, 2006. Wait a minute. Before that, it was Allies of War in Chile, October 2005, and then became interested in Chris McKinstry on the 21st, 3 days before he dropped dead? Really? So here's an IP address prepping the page, removing irrelevant links and defending Chris McKinstry? Or saying bad things about him? Here we go with somebody who only edited Chris McKinstry, another IP address. By the way, some of these point to specific ports or street addresses in Canada. Some point to Santiago, Chile, long after he was dead. Here's another user account. Now this one goes on Fraggle Rock, bunch of stuff in 2005. This is a normal, casual view. Oh look, it's decided to edit Voyage, yada yada yada. This is the one complaining that but there's also supposed to be a Winnipeg Free Press link. That one actually showed up as being not real either. And look at that. Voyage, they're fixating on this story. Let's go here. Here's user contributions for this IP address. Only McKinstry. June. Okay. Then we get here, May, June, and July, or August 2007, but only doing this once. This is a normal person. Here we go with somebody who's auto-blanking random shit on random pages, but is interested in Chile. So Chilean people, even this kind of person who's probably deleting random shit, was interested in him. His body was expatriated to Canada, but where's your proof? And then we get here. This is an IP address that deleted every death and every birth for January 23rd. And then later on edited Chris McKinstry. And they did it a very specific pattern. Edits that were double in a row on the same day to induce a 3 revert rule automatic bot activity by people who are being Wikipedia gnomes, so it would succeed in erasing specific tactically picked stuff. This was a vulnerability and still is on Wikipedia where you have to go through and look for the difference and edits. You have to look at the diff file. And yeah, this is entirely about harassing McKinstry, anybody who died January 23rd, and George Michael. Did George Michael, was he born or died on the 23rd? Is it just somebody looking up people who died or born on 23rd and going after 2 people? Really quickly. So, what we have here is somebody trying to erase the death listing or reference for Chris McKinstry on that date. Now, I don't remember when George Michael died. He died on the 25th of December. He was not born on the 23rd of January. So yeah, this is somebody hiding that they're editing in favor or against Chris McKinstry by getting their account cacked probably for doing that, and going after births and deaths on January 23rd. But it's obviously about Chris McKinstry because he's the only common denominator. Now, that makes me sound like a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm a conspiracy theory debunker. This isn't debunkable. There are people, or more accurately, a bunch of IP addresses that some smart apple could set up with fake IP addresses showing him coming from all over the planet editing this page, creating a false argument about whether or not the body was ever shipped back or even found.